Welcome, everyone. Glad that you could make it for this session. We have an opportunity to talk about some of the questions and prayers that you've written in, and we'll have an evening interspersed with some wonderful music too. So I was kind of looking, there's so many questions that have been written in for this particular gathering. We have online retreat, and I was looking through some of the different ones and going through, and there's just I saw I think it's Dan Paley from Washington. I see Dan's with us tonight. Hi, Dan. Dan had written in, a friend once inquired if Gandhi's aim in settling in the village and serving the villagers was purely humanitarian. Gandhi replied, I am here to serve no one else but myself, to find my own self-realization through the service of these village folk. And here's the question. Dan writes, near the end of the 1993 movie Tombstone, Wyatt Earp asked Doc Holliday what motivates a villain like Johnny Ringo. Doc Holliday explains, inside Johnny Ringo is a hole that cannot be filled. He cannot steal enough or kill enough or suffer enough to fill that hole. And then Dan writes that idea, this idea is personal for me, like a song in a familiar key. That hole cannot be filled by anything in this world, no person, no place, no thing. Only God's love can fill that emptiness. Thank you, David and Francis. So I think, yeah, it's actually very profound, Dan, when I think it takes like an admission when we start to admit that to ourselves, that we've tried it on our own, and certainly by tried it on our own in the past, that was the ego. But Gandhi was giving a quote that really was dealing with self-realization. I think he was just aware that he was going through the gift of giving and service to all the villagers and everyone he would meet, that he might know the truth of God's love for himself through giving, and see that there is no other. And so I think it's beautiful that, and the second part of what you wrote too was, it does seem to be that that's kind of like the hidden secret of coming to time and space, is searching for wholeness in a realm in which was projected to cover up wholeness. It's kind of like looking for water in a desert, or looking for love in a projection that was made to provide many opportunities to be distracted away from God's love. So I think that that's kind of like in the 12-step program, you have to kind of come to an admission of what didn't work. And that's, I think that quote from Wyatt Earp in the movie is kind of a way of saying there is no amount of anything, of doing anything in the world that will bring fulfillment. So thank you for that. Do you have anything else that you wanted to add to, yeah, we'll just let you unmute yourself there.
Thank you, David. Just real briefly, I learned, or it came to me a number of years ago, that everything out there in the world is like a roadside, it's like a roadside attraction. A roadside attraction. You know, you see these signs, you have to go off the main highway. And sometimes you go off quite a ways. Nothing ever satisfied me in my life. even when I was a child, things were interrupted sometimes, or something else occurred that I had to deal with, and nothing I attained was never quite enough. It just never is quite enough. Maybe you could just say something about that, David.
Yeah. Yeah, I think if we look at what seems to be our experience with this world, we seem to come to the world with a certain specific set of circumstances, country and parents, family situation. It's like Shakespeare said, all the world's a stage and everyone must play the part. And usually we take on, first of all, the fetus role, embryo role, the fetus role, the newborn baby role, and then we seem to roll on into a whole set of roles that seem to be very specific and very much preordained. But we're learning that when we came to this world, we brought the world with us. We didn't come like a happy soul flying around and saying, "Oh, it looks like a pretty blue planet. I'm just going to splash down there for a while." Jesus tells us, when you came, you brought the world with you. We brought everything. I always say it's like having a soul with a little soul backpack, and then out of the backpack comes the whole cosmos. So we can't really be a victim of the cosmos, but I think what you're saying is most all of us have had that experience where we have played many roles. And there are even actors like Richard Gere who are grateful for all the roles they've played, because they start to realize that they aren't the characters. They're just roles that they play for a time. And Jim Carrey's another one, a beautiful comedian and actor that's talked a lot about playing all the roles and gaining the success and fame and notoriety that is sometimes sought for, but realizing that wasn't it either. So I think what we're hearing and seeing is we're getting a lot of reflections that we've tried it and we've tried to find some kind of fulfillment in it, but there's an emptiness that comes. And then as we started off this whole retreat, Francis was talking about Bill Thetford and Helen Schuckman. There must be a better way. And that's what we're here to discover. I love the newness of the moment. I love that we have these encounters like this, where we can come with such sincerity and say, I'm hoping to have my mind lit up. I'm hoping to reach that 10th stage in Jesus's manual for teachers, the 10th characteristic of a teacher of God, which he says is perhaps the last one to come in, is open-mindedness. And what is open-mindedness but realizing we can't judge anything or anyone? We're completely open. We're not here to judge one thing is better than another, or one person, or one scene, or one event. We're just here to behold the world, you might say, through the eyes of Christ. Like the Waterboys song, I want to look twice at you until I see the Christ in you. I love that song. Just hang in there at that pause. I want to look twice at you until I see the Christ in you. So yeah, I think that's beautiful that you share that, because I know there are those that are joining us tonight that have also tried many things and felt there was a sense of unfulfillment in that, and really were praying and yearning for that sense of wholeness and fulfillment. And that's what we're here for. Pray, listen, and follow. Beautiful. Thank you, Dan. How sweet. How sweet. And I'll grab another one here in front of me too. This is from Peter, Zoyomi and in Hungary. I'm not sure if Peter's on with us tonight, because some of my friends from Europe, I just got a WhatsApp about a half an hour going saying, "Oh, it's so late over here. We're going to bed." We'll catch it on the replay. catch it on the replay, the best of. But Peter writes, "Hi, David. I'm working with workbook lessons 17 through 28. I have understood why Jesus put so much emphasis on actual changing our perception, as this false seeing is keeping us in our own hypnosis. My question is more related to encouragement. Can you relate to your own experience if the actual and real change of the perception happened, seeing flashes of rays of light, disappearance of separate object, and eventually seeing God in everything, in everyone? In your own experience or your students' experience, whenever I work on these lessons, I feel massive rejection and fear. So I know this is definitely not my ego who wants this, but somehow I feel this is a very difficult part of the teachings. If you can give me any experiences, instructions, how to receive the gift of real seeing, I will listen to each of your words as coming from the Holy Spirit, as you surely are his advocate. I'm getting a lot of inspiration from your videos, movie reviews. All I can say is that I love you unconditionally as I love Jesus. Thank you for all your love and inspiration, and just simply keeps flowing from you as endless rivers." Well, those workbook lessons that you're referring to, 17 to 28, it really is beginning to open up to spiritual vision or Christ vision. And I think for myself, the revelatory experiences that I've talked about quite a bit were the major, I guess it was like a huge glimpse or huge inspiration in my own life when the perception of the world seemed to collapse into from three-dimensional to two-dimensional, and then the great rays started streaming through, and then all I had was a light experience of a light that is not of this world. But I know there have been many mystics and saints throughout the centuries, including Saint Francis, who was really, I think of him as kind of like a nature mystic. He was so amazing the way he had these interactions with animals and with plants when he would go out, and he reported some of the things that you're talking about that are mentioned in the course workbook, where there were like borders of light that seemed to be surrounding the plants. And these are kind of mystical experiences that are foreshadowing opening the heart and opening the mind completely to the light. So I think they're meant to give us some encouragement, but actually, whenever you feel those feelings of rejection, you were mentioning some of the things you were feeling that were coming up, kind of really harsh emotions. Those are just opportunities for us to pause and again come back to see that whenever we feel those emotions of rejection or isolation, they're really coming from the ego's comparisons, because the ego will always take things out of context, which are basically the symbols of the Holy Spirit are just pointing us inward and showing us what is coming from our mind. And then the Holy Spirit tries to put it on a timeline and make the mystical experience either something to be sought for in the future or something that happened, and then there's a sense of comparison or regret that the ego spurs on, a sense of how could I lose that experience? Why did I come out of that experience? Why has it been so long since I have had another experience? These are all the comparison ways that the ego is trying to generate this feeling of isolation, rejection, abandonment, as if there's someone else or something else that is going on that one is bereft of, or one is deprived of. And that sense of comparison, as Jesus says, comparison must be an ego device, for love makes none. So love is this sense of just acceptance, letting all things be exactly as they are, and really letting go of the personal perspective, realizing even in a flash that you've never done anything right or wrong, but it was just a misperception, a linear misperception that was generating the friction, that was generating the harshness. So if you're over in Hungary, I think it might be the wee hours of the morning, but hopefully you can catch this on the replay, like some of my friends are going to do over there. They tried to stay up for the midnight hour, but they just wrote to me, I think I'm going to go to bed. So those are a couple of the questions that jumped out to me initially, and I thought it might be nice. I always like it when we have new people showing up on these online retreats, and I believe we have over 20 new people that are here for the first time. And it's always fun to meet you and have you kind of say hi to us. And if there's anything that we've been talking about in the first session or at the beginning of this session that you are interested in, or you would like to raise up as a topic or ask a question about, please raise your digital hand right now, and then Pete can bring you into the screen with me here, and we'll talk about it. Also, tomorrow we have an amazing movie. It's really about miracles. It's about faith. It's about healing, and it's about, you might say, pray and listen and follow in action. So we're going to see a demonstration of that in strong action. And I always love those kind of movies because we need witnesses, we need examples to help lift our hearts up, that we can feel motivated to do this, to really dive in and say, yeah, here I am, Lord. Here I am, willing to follow and to open my heart and open my mind. So I see Marilyn has got her hand up. Marilyn, why don't you unmute yourself, and nice to meet you.
It's great to meet you. Thank you so much. Yeah, I've been, it's great to be here. I've been wanting to come to an online retreat for some time. And I have been studying the course, for about 25 years now. Seriously, it chased me for 40 years. And every time it came to me, I couldn't understand it, and or too busy working mainly. And then it came to find me at my lowest point, and I understood absolutely everything I was reading. It was like it was a miracle. This was in 2004 when I was at my lowest. But so it's great to meet you, and I love that you are that I can access your commentaries on the workbook and things like that. So I've been taking full advantage of that. I'm a visual learner, so it's hard for me to just hear through Spreaker and get much. You know what I'm saying? So I'm glad to be here in the flesh and to see you in the flesh. And the only thing I sent a prayer in, but it's more about, for me, just a question. I grew up Presbyterian, and I left all that behind me in my 20s, and forever actually. But I just wonder. I don't know how. In other words, I didn't have a working relationship with Jesus ever, really. I was quite the religious girl in many ways, very devoted, very good good girl. And but I wonder, how did you, maybe you said you grew up in a Christian environment, but I don't know how to. I'm very connected to Holy Spirit. Holy Spirit has saved me so many times, and I'm get just perfect guidance from him. I feel so connected to Holy Spirit, but not to Jesus. And I don't know if that's, an issue at all. It just feels like I should be able to, I don't know if I should be praying to Jesus. It sounds kind of funny, but I don't know how to have a relationship with him. And I don't know if it's that important if that's just a more of a personal thing. I just don't know. So I was going to ask you if you'd comment on that.
Yes, yes. Thank you, Marilyn. Yeah, I think as I've traveled around the world, I've listened to a lot of people tell me that they have either strong relation with Jesus or no relation with Jesus, or kind of a weak relationship with Jesus. And I would say that Jesus is a symbol, and that the Holy Spirit is not in form, but the Holy Spirit uses the forms to help reach us while we believe in forms. So I think in that sense, Jesus could be helpful, in the sense that Jesus says in the Course that you can learn from my experiences, and you can learn from all the experiences of your brothers. Isn't that wonderful? that every time anybody's sharing anything with us, it's an opportunity for us to learn in a very deep, profound way. Also, I think like when I grew up in Christianity, I was in a denomination, a Protestant denomination called United Church of Christ. And I enjoyed reading the Bible. I particularly liked the New Testament, the Gospels with the red letters of Jesus. I resonated with those red letters. And I enjoyed hearing about experiences that he had. I think even as I went a little bit further with my opening my connection with Jesus, it was more of, I even read the Urantia book. The fourth section in the Urantia book was called The Life and Teachings of Jesus. And it was really like a bird's eye view of everything that was going on, all of his teachings, his sermons, little nods and glances that he would have, his interactions with the apostles and Mary Magdalene and the women's court. I found that very valuable, because as we have identified and believed ourselves to be people and bodies, we need stepping stones. We need to relate to it. It doesn't do us a lot of good when we're crying out for help and whatever comes goes over our head. We're like, whoa, hey, what was that? That felt good, but what was it? I need something I can relate to. I need examples. I need demonstrations. I need lots of examples and lots of demonstrations. So at the beginning, I think I was kind of similar, where I was just saying, following the Holy Spirit, but saying, Jesus, okay, be you in charge, you lead, I will follow. And I felt this humor coming over me, and this laughter and joy, and this friendliness and this kindness, actually sweetness. It wasn't like a stern kind of kind of feeling. It was more of like a dear, dear friend, almost like having a little bird sitting on your shoulder, chirping away, giving you helpful little hints and instructions and encouragement. I thought, this is really great. And I think a little bit later on in this session too, when I'm on with Kenneth Clifford, we'll talk more about this this deep connection with Jesus. But I would say, if you just focus on the prayer of your heart being that you want helpful examples, you want helpful little prompts and instructions. It's like inviting a dear, dear friend to come and join you and collaborate with your mind, and you can start to really feel the joy of that collaboration. There's nothing like lording over you. It's more like a the dearest friend that you could ever imagine with you, smiling at you, laughing with you, and even in your darkest hours, little by little, he seems to come through more and more. It got to the point, though, where for me, it's when I think of Jesus and Holy Spirit, I just think of them synonymously as this presence of love that is with us and who we are, reminding us of our beautiful spiritual nature. And so I'm not so much into the details of the historical Jesus, other than how those examples could be helpful in my daily life when I'm going through something. That's why I enjoy watching this new series, The Chosen, because it gives so many examples of relating to brothers and sisters in a very friendly, loving, cordial way, and letting wisdom kind of pour through in the most simple of circumstances and human interactions. I love spiritual community, so I love watching Jesus and the apostles because it evokes feelings of love and connection in my heart. And I like to feel connected to all my brothers and sisters. So thank you, Marilyn. Yeah, my prayer is that you have an opening relationship with Jesus, and then just if you give the invitation, that's all you can really do. The rest is out of our hands. So thank you so much. Okay, and we have Trent. Hi, Trent. Nice to meet you.
Hi, this is actually Robert. Trent is sat here.
Trent's right
me.
there. We got a double special, Trent and Robert.
Trent's been a student for quite a long while. Well, quite a long while. I don't know. I mean, not a long while in the context of how long many people have here, but maybe a year or two. And I began, I guess, this year. So as I said in my little email, it's been around in my life a long while, of course, in miracles. So and we're here in Perth, WA. So we had a pretty late night last night and just got up this morning to join you. You spoke last night a bit about people wanting to heal by just working on the symptoms and go to doctors that fix the symptoms. And it's been something that's been very close to me because just a few years ago, I suffered chronic pain for several years and learned that the place to heal from that was to go within. And I learned a huge amount about myself on that journey and finally got myself free of all the symptoms and got back to living a life of doing the things I love, going out mountain biking in nature and going to dance and all these beautiful things. And it's wonderful to have done that. And I seem to attract a lot of people in my life at the moment that are suffering. And, some are willing to go within, some just push it away and push it away. And I've now got a situation where I'm actually getting paid as a support worker to work with this lady who I particularly took it on because she saw it. She saw it in the beginning, from my sharing and showing her people's stories of coming free of pain, and then went back into fighting symptoms, getting stressed, running around trying to deal with these symptoms. And I've come to a place myself of just trying to be in a space of peace and love and happiness when I'm working with her, despite that she'll even turn on me and because she'll push it all away. So I use that as a mirror, and despite sometimes really not wanting to be there doing that work and being with her, still using it as an opportunity to find peace and happiness in those times and have that be an example for her. And I struggle a little bit with, well, she's only a manifestation of my mind. And yet there's this thing you speak of being helpful to others. My mind goes a bit crazy around that whole thing. And my life before a lot of it has been very focused on making a difference in the world and working with at-risk young people and all that, amongst having amazing adventures outside. So I wonder if you could say a bit more about that. Yeah, what that brings for you. It's and whilst I know that, I know I get some sense of she's a mirror of myself. She's my manifestation. As an example, this woman Dee that I'm working with at the moment. It's also painful seeing her suffering and seeing herself. I actually see how she does it all herself, how she stresses herself out, how she pushes away, present to it all, and I have to try and just be with that. And yeah, I'll stop.
Yeah. Beautiful, Robert. Yeah, I did. I read what you wrote in about the experiences you went through, those 3 years of really intense, debilitating pain. And then also, I think you said you have your elderly mother that is living with you, I believe. And so that, if she's over 90, 95, that presents an interesting kind of close mirror right now, aside from the job you're doing and the memories you have, but mom is living with you, and that's always a very interesting mirroring experience, living with your mother. But I would say, from a deeper metaphysical perspective, that you're on your spiritual journey now, and we could say those 3 years of debilitating pain, it really got your attention. The pain got your attention, probably because it was such a contrast to your life, the things you just enjoy doing, and it's just like really grabbed your attention. And then when you start to get into metaphysics, and you did start to have realizations that the pain that you seem to go through and experience was coming from repressed memories, or we could, if we use a psychological term, we could just call it the unconscious mind. That's a little bit spooky for everybody, because unconscious is like out of awareness. It's like, wait a minute, you mean there's something out of my awareness that's dictating emotions like intense pain and all the other range of very uncomfortable, we could call them negative emotions, because with the belief in the unconscious can come feelings of helplessness and powerlessness. And wow, you mean there's something within my mind that's kind of running the show, and then it just kind of shows up for 3 years and totally knocks me out of whack from what I was experiencing. And there's a part where Jesus calls this unconscious mind, he calls it the dream that you dream in secret. So the secret dream is that the belief that we've separated from our Creator, and that's very painful and guilt-inducing. The idea that we pull away, not from a parent on earth with abandonment issues or rejection issues there, but from our divine Creator. Like, we were created as perfect love and spirit. We acknowledged that, we accepted that as a yes. We didn't just passively get created. There was a realm called nirvana, or heaven, in which we are one in spirit. That is our actual nature, our true identity. And then when we seem to fall asleep and believe in separation, we have this dream that we dream in secret, which psychologists call the unconscious. It's been called the shadow. It's definitely out of awareness. And then there's a surface level of what we perceive as our life in this world. The David, the Robert, and all the persons we're watching here on Zoom are part of the surface level of consciousness. And Jesus says that's the dream that you gave away. So you have a dream that you dream in secret, which is really dark. I mean, he uses the words draped with sin. And of course, he's teaching us that sin is an error that can be corrected and has been corrected. But as far as our belief, our consciousness, that is out of awareness. It's so dark we can't even look on it. And then a top tier, a mask was invented And it's not just a persona mask, a personality mask of the David and the Robert, but it's actually the mask of time and space that is covering over this deep, dark unconscious. So this is what we might call the gross perceptual world. We see birds and trees, in Australia, Perth, there's the ocean nearby and the dolphins and the whales. There's beaches, there's men and women, there's mountains, there's deserts. We see houses and cities and so forth. And this is all part of the dream that was given away, as if it's being done to us. So it's kind of like a trick. The unconscious darkness is projected into a cosmos and a world in which things seem to happen to the hero of the dream. In this case, we could say Robert is the hero of the dream. And then there's these other characters that don't always, behave in the most sane ways to the hero. The hero seems to be subjected to some amazing, intense experiences in which things seem to happen. You're describing more of like this repressed memories that seem to have come up into awareness and have kind of, it put a big hold on Robert's life for those 3 years, you were saying in what you wrote in. So the healing starts to happen when we start to realize, wow, it's just the reason that pain seems to come into awareness is that I have hidden beliefs and hidden thoughts that I've just been too afraid to bring into awareness, to bring to the light. And you might say that this teaching, that A Course in Miracles and what we're sharing here, is more learning to be more consciously aware of everything that's in consciousness. So we could say the goal is just to be fully aware of the contents of consciousness, not have some hidden, and then surprise you for 3 years with like debilitating pain. On a broader perspective, you might say that as I was sharing earlier, this is a dream of separation. And it's a projection of the ego. So as we identify with the dream and we start to try to stabilize as being a functioning human being, citizen on planet Earth in this world, we try to adapt and adjust to this projection. And we have defense mechanisms, and we try to work it out in our relationships and in our interactions with Earth and the forces of nature and governments and neighbors and everything else. It's quite a navigation job. But what Jesus is saying is, you've forgotten the truth. You forgot the light. You've had complete amnesia about spirit. So it's a world of darkness that we've adapted and adjusted to, and we try to normalize in it. We just want to be normal human beings, have a normal, good life. We want to go around and say, hey, good day, mate. Good day, mate. Good day, mate. We want to have some good day, mate times. Let's have some gusto. Let's have a good, decent life on earth. And Jesus is telling us, well, actually, you can aim higher than that. There's something higher than that. And Jesus is telling us that in our state of distorted perception, that our perception is so distorted that we can't tell the difference between pain and joy. When I first read that, I was like, what? What are you saying, Jesus? You saying that I can't tell the difference between pain and joy? I may not understand many things, and I don't need a college education, I don't think, to tell the difference between pain and joy. And Jesus said, no, you're in such a sleepy state right now. You're so far asleep, so deeply in the fog, that you can't tell the difference between pain and joy. And I said, really? And he said, if you could tell the difference between pain and joy, you would never experience pain again. You would only experience joy if you could tell the difference. But because you can't tell the difference, sometimes you choose the pain. I choose the pain. That is sick. That is absolutely sick. And he's saying it's just a wrong-minded choice. Pain is a wrong-minded perception. There's another alternative that's available that's in alignment with your creator, in which is just pure joy. And if you learn to train your mind to think like that, to think with your creator instead of trying to think against your creator, then you'll find there's not only a difference between pain and joy, that the joy is real and the pain is not. Woo! Oh man, that's a mind blower. So then he goes on, he tells us that the main problem we have as part of the human condition is we have these unconscious beliefs that the ego has not, and we have not given permission to allow into awareness. And so I was saying to Jesus, well, can you give me an example? What's an example of an unconscious belief that the ego doesn't want me to be aware of? Can you give me an example? And Jesus said, yeah, the example would be that pain and pleasure are actually identical. What? Pain and pleasure are identical? What is that about? How is that so? I really must be lost if I'm perceiving them as different, but they sure seem different. And he said, they're both inventions of the ego, and inventions of the ego share the same purpose. And that same purpose is to reinforce your identification with the body. And then Jesus said, I'll give you an example. When you are in intense pain, if you have an intense migraine headache that goes on and on for hours, a pounding migraine headache, are you thinking of God during that pounding migraine headache? I said, no, I'm not. I've got a lot of thoughts going on there, but I'm not thinking of God. And what about the orgasm? Are you thinking of God there? No, I mean, it's intensely pleasureful, but I can't say that I know a lot of times I've heard people go, oh God, at a climax or something, but I don't think this is like the creator. They're thinking of abstract love and light at that moment. It's usually some other thoughts there. And what Jesus is showing us is that pain and pleasure both reinforce the body as a reality. And it's part of false evidence appearing real. It's fantasy, it's invention. But that shows you how deep the rabbit hole goes. He'll teach us in the course where he says things like, it's impossible to seek for pleasure without finding pain. Okay, that one's definitely not been in awareness much of my life. I was always trying to maximize the pleasure and minimize the pain. And now you're telling me that they're the same. It's impossible to seek for pleasure without finding pain. So that's an example of an unconscious belief that the ego doesn't want brought into awareness, because if that comes into awareness and you start to, we'll say, wise up, is how we start to get clearer and clearer, we're going to go for the miracle. We're going to go for the joy. We're going to go for the inspiration. We're going to go for just being lit up, happy for no reason, because we're following our inner guidance. That's going to draw us. The light is going to draw us so quickly toward the light. We will come closer, much faster into awareness. But as long as we have these unconscious beliefs, then we still have things that are repressed, as you said, repressed memories, things that are repressed and pushed out of awareness. And those things have to be brought to awareness so that we can release them. So it's just a little example of how deep the rabbit hole goes, and everything that we seem to perceive, like your mother living with you, or doing this work, helping this woman who's going through the chronic pain. All of these things are helpful mind watchers just to pay attention to what's going on in our mind. What are my thoughts producing? And do I want what these egoic thoughts are producing. So I guess if Trent's been more working with the course for a while, when you start to get into the workbook lessons of A Course in Miracles, and I'm doing these kind of spontaneous ones from time to time, but I think on my YouTube channel, I've got like starting off in the early lessons, those are like the master psychologist, the master giving us great instruction on what's going on in our mind and how our thoughts that we think are producing the world that we think we perceive, and that we need to change our thinking. We need to release these grievances, judgments, opinions, and attack thoughts in order to be free of pain and pleasure and actually come into a state of ecstasy and joy. So thank you, Robert. That's a beautiful question for everybody. And it's morning in Perth. Very good. We've got people going to sleep in Europe, morning in Perth, and it's evening time in some other places. So we're just broadcasting around the world in this moment. But it's a joy meeting you, and thank you for writing in your question. Francis and I really took 2 or 3 looks at your question when we read it. We thought that's a juicy one. Thank you. Beautiful. Okay, Caroline Blakemore.
Hi.
Hi.
What a privilege to be here with everyone.
Oh,
I love your work, and all these questions that have come up, they're all questions I could have had, and I'm learning from everyone. And I wanted to ask, since you mentioned St. Francis, and he was kind of a mystic of nature and animals. When I was 4 years old, sitting in the midst of nature, suddenly this light came to me. And that kind of changed my circuitry for the rest of my life. I always looked for light. And I've had so many incredible, joyous, ecstatic experiences. And sometimes I just look at a tree and I light up, and I'm just in ecstasy, or I'll see a bird. Like I have a bird, a blue jay that eats out of my hand. And so I've had so many ecstatic experiences. And so I'm wondering if those are shadow light experiences instead of the real thing. I mean, I can't say that I've always experienced God when I was doing that, although often yes, but I'm wondering if those are just projections somehow that I've made up.
oh, well, thank you, Caroline. Yes, sometimes I refer to this world as kind of like dark shadows and light shadows. The dark shadows would be the negative, and the light shadows would be seemingly very positive experiences, like blue jay eating out of your hand. You've got a lot of that St. Francis energy there, where you can be so close to the animals. I've had that happen too. I think it's when our mind just starts to be in a state of wonder, in a state of wonderment and ecstasy and very lighthearted, then we start to draw forth witnesses. I was down at a place, I had a little hermitage in rural Kentucky by a lake, and I was walking around the lake with a friend of mine, and there were all these butterflies, hundreds of butterflies sitting on the warm stones as we were walking around this lake in Kentucky. And so as I was walking with my friend Dorothy, I put my finger out and I said, okay, I'm telepathically going to ask one of these butterflies to ride on the end of my finger as I'm walking along here. And she laughed and laughed and laughed. And then we went maybe another 20 feet and she burst into laughter. And I said, I'm still had my finger out. And I said, "What is so funny, Dorothy?" And she said, "There's one of them on your butt." I said, "Oh, well, working on this telepathy thing here." I said, "No, I'm persisting. So I held my finger out again, continued walking, talking to this in my mind, to this butterfly that was sitting on my butt. And I said, "Come on around and ride on my fingertip and bring your antennas out like a nice hood ornament, like a car, an old car." And then after a few more minutes, she burst out laughter. This butterfly came around and did land right on my fingertip and walked with me. As I walked, I carried this little happy butterfly on my fingertip. But I think these are reflections. I call them light shadows. They're still reflections in the world, but they're reflections of non-judgment. They're reflections of acceptance. They're reflections of wonderment, like a childlike glee and wonderment that's pristine. It's not judgmental at all. It's very open-hearted. So yeah, that's my answer to your question. Is I think these are harbingers. These are things that are really getting our mind ready for God, and we should enjoy these. And I see that you are. Ever since the 4-year-old experience you had of light, you're still drinking them in. So I rejoice with you in that. So thank you, Caroline. Beautiful. Thank you.
David, I was just going to mention we're about half time now.
Yes, I just saw that too, Pete. So why don't we have, after that beautiful expression from Caroline, why don't we go to our music? And I see Jason. No, it's Eric and Emily are down in Casa Quantico. So yeah, let's have a little more music.
Well, sometimes my life just don't make sense at all. When the mountains look so big and my faith just feels so small. So hold me, Jesus, 'cause I'm shaking like a leaf. You have been King of my glory. Won't you be my Prince of Peace? And I wake up in the night and feel the dark. It's so hard inside my soul. I swear there must be blisters on my heart. So hold me, Jesus, 'cause I'm shaking like a leaf. You have been King of my glory. Won't you be my Prince of Peace? Surrender don't come natural to me. I'd rather fight you for something I don't really want than take what you give that I need. And I beat my head against so many walls. Now I'm falling down, I'm falling on my knees. And this Salvation Army band is playing this hymn, and your grace rings out so deep, it makes my resistance seem so thin. So hold me, Jesus, 'cause I'm shaking like a leaf. You have been King of my glory. Won't you be my Prince of Peace. I'm singing, hold me, Jesus, 'cause I'm shaking like a leaf. You have been King of my glory. Won't you be my Prince of Peace? You have been King of my glory. Won't you be my Prince of Peace?
I'm going to do one that I just kind of learned today. I'll never be more loved than I am right now. I'll never be more loved than I am right now. I wasn't holding you up, so there's nothing I can do to let you down. Wasn't holding you up, so there's nothing I can do to let you down. It doesn't take a trophy to make you proud. I'll never be more loved than I am right now. And I'm totally known. I'm already chosen. I'm already loved more than I can imagine. And I'm already known. I'm already chosen. I'm already loved more than I can imagine. You've never been closer to me than you are right now. I wasn't keeping you in, so there's nothing I can do to push you out. It doesn't take a fancy prayer to call you in. You'll never be closer to me, God, than you are right now. No, you'll never be closer than you are right now. I'm already known, I'm already chosen, I'm already loved, yeah, more than I can imagine. Yeah, I'm already known, I'm totally known, I'm already loved, more than I can imagine. He dresses the lilies with beauty and splendor. How much more will he clothe me? If he watches over every sparrow, then how much more must he love me? If he dresses the lilies with beauty and splendor, how much more will he love me? I've never been more loved than I am right now. I'll never be more loved than I am right now. I wasn't holding you up, so there's nothing I can do to let you down. Wasn't holding you up, so there's nothing I can do to let you down. It doesn't take a trophy to make you proud. I'll never be more loved than I am right now. No, I'll never be more loved than I am right now.
Thank you. Oh, thank you, Eric. Thank you, Emily. Soothing. Feel like we all took a dip in the pond here in the middle of the session. Cool dip. Well, beautiful. I see our beloveds at Casa Divine Spark have their digital hand up. So yeah, let's see what this is going to be.
Hi, dear.
Hi.
So there's a lot of deep healing going on here. And lots of gratitude. And miracles. And so mostly my question, David, is if you would please speak more about fear of death and fear of God, and how that rears up in this journey of healing.
Yeah. Well, it's interesting that the ego belief system itself is what death is, but how the world was made as a way to displace emotions and displace emotional intensity and to see it somewhere else. So that is what is going on with death. The ego itself is the belief in death, because the belief that you can make or be or exist apart from the creator, apart from God, is the belief in death. That's what the ego is. It's an imposter self. Imposter meaning the world that it makes and the self that it sponsors is not a creation of God. So then the death is then projected onto the forms. So we think of forms dying, the body dying, human bodies, plant bodies, animal bodies, even stars burning out. You know, that we say it has a life when it's burning gases, and when the gases burn out and it's extinguished, we say it's the dead star. You know, we project the death wish of the mind, which is the ego, onto everything, including the stars. And along with that is this belief in time. So the reason there's such a fear of death in terms of what human beings experience is it's because death is associated with an ending. Just like birth is associated with the beginning, death is associated with an ending. And this ending is filled with death because of the uncertainty of it, where the mind has become so accustomed to breathing and to eating and moving about and activity, that then this idea of the body ceasing to be animated, ceasing to act, ceasing to have blood pumping through it, and the vitality of neurotransmitters sending signals throughout the body and the brain, it seems to be associated with an ending. But this is all the ego hiding itself and behind the projection. It's kind of like in the very famous movie, The Wizard of Oz, where the main characters, they all take this voyage to go to Oz so that they can meet the wizard. And when they get there, they are kind of trembling and shaking because there's this big, giant head and all this smoke and this deep voice, and it's like this thunderous, monstrous head. And then they come to realize when the dog jumps out of Dorothy's hands and goes and pulls the curtain, that it's just a scared man who's using projection to try to scare all of the characters. And that's a pretty strong metaphor for how the ego is tucked away in the unconscious mind. And then it pops its head out occasionally, but actually it's mainly focused on making the projections to seem to be scary. And so that the mind will not attempt to escape because it's too afraid of the projections and too afraid of the disastrous outcomes. And one of those chosen disastrous outcomes is the death of the body. If you bring it back into the mind, you can start to see that fear is the ego's emotion, and that when you fear death, you really are feeling the ego's emotions. It's like, that's one of the drawbacks of identifying with the ego. You feel its emotions. Christ does not have fear, but the ego is fear. And when you feel it, you feel its emotions. So really, as we start to look at things like sickness, body symptoms, or the fear of death, the fear of the cessation, the ending of the body, we see that this seems to be a displaced fear. When we really start to look at it, we start to realize, wow, I guess all the experiences I have in time and space are just opportunities to get in touch with what I do believe, to unveil and expose the beliefs. I was watching a movie last night, and it was all about relationships. It was on Amazon, and it was all kinds of twists and turns in relationships. And at the very end, the main character, she just goes to a nudist colony. And that's the final scene of the movie, is the nudist colony, where everyone is looking at all their thoughts and judgments about the body and starting to heal, not just through relationships, but through relationships in a nudist camp. And believe me, the body is a big target for the ego's projections. And that's why symptoms seem to be so important to it. You know, you got to do something. You got to do something. You got to get rid of these symptoms, because it's all focused on the external world, what seems to be the external world and the body. So I think that is something that as you live in community, and also as the body seems to age, the aging of the body is like the projection of time onto this character, or this figure. It would be like having this character, and then you have an overhead projector, and you keep projecting time onto it. And then through the magic of the ego, it seems to be an aging problem. But I don't think most people are so concerned with aging as much as they are death of the body, which seems to be like an ending. When I've talked to people too who say, oh, David, I still have grievances with my mother and father, but they've passed away. I blew my chance. I had a chance, and then they died, and now I don't have a chance to heal. And I said, no, it's not like death of the body is any kind of significant event. It's just a projection. So the real fear is loss of connection. And when I talk to them more, I say, tell me more. So you feel so bad because you think you lost connection with your mother and your father because they've passed away. Tell me more. And they'll say, yes, I've lost connection because, I say, why? Because I lost communication. I said, aha, there's another belief. we believe that communication is dependent on the body, and we believe communication is dependent on words. The ego is a sneaky, tricky belief system, because when somebody passes away, if people really look openly at their emotions, they really are suffering. It's like self-induced suffering based on abandonment beliefs, rejection beliefs, or the belief in a break in communication. And I will tell them, I worked in hospice. I've been with people who were at the last stages of seemingly their life on earth. And I would go around and tell them joyfully that communication doesn't end, and that they didn't do anything wrong, and that they should thank you for living such a wonderful life. And I would go into hospice and shower them with love, and they would be so happy that the next day they were gone. They didn't even have a need for hospice. All they wanted to be told of and reminded of was their innocence. I'm innocent. I'm innocent. I'm connected. I'm loved. That's the truth. Like the song Eric was just singing, I'll never be loved like I am right now. You see how even the song is bringing us back to the present moment. So yeah, thank you. Thank you for bringing this up, because that is one of those beliefs that sometimes is under the surface, but there at Casa Divine Spark, I know you don't want to keep anything under the surface, so you want it all up and out, and you're doing it for all of us. So thank you. Thank you so much for sharing that. Okay, and John, happy to meet you, John.
Hello.
Hi.
David, I've been listening to you on Spreaker for years and just appreciate what you've put out there so much. And I was trying to figure out, why did, after all these years, why have I finally decided to come to this, retreat? And, I've went to spirit-filled churches for years and then just kind of lost my way. And the pray, listen, and follow, it's like after so many times of perceiving myself to have failed at that, it's like I'm just reaching out, just looking for something to hold on to, so that I believe I'll make it this time. I'll go further this time.
Yeah.
And I think that's why I'm really here on this particular retreat. So if you've got anything to say about that, I'd welcome it.
Oh, beautiful. Thank you, John. Wow. Wow. We all feel your heart. Whoa. I think we want connection. We want fellowship. We want, like you said, that spirit-filled experience. And some of us have sought it and have actually had some amazing experiences in spirit-filled churches. And then, like you, some of us have come to a point where that somehow, or some way, that seems to come to an end. And sometimes we do feel a bit like we're drifting, like we're kind of out on the ocean and we're drifting a bit because the fellowship doesn't quite seem to be the same, or the connection feeling doesn't seem to be so strong, like a flame. It doesn't seem to be burning like a flame. And I think that is the draw of this online retreat topic, pray, listen, follow. In my life, I've had experiences just in all over the world, in 44 countries, and been to 49 states and had these deep, intimate experiences. But I always was like really praying and searching for that consistent aliveness and vibrancy and inspiration. And to me, this topic of pray, listen, follow has been where I really have found the connection, the consistent connection. I really had to dive deep into that kind of more of as a way of life or a way of being. Pray, listen, and follow. It's almost like that's the key, or that's the code that I need to be in, the alignment that I need to be in to feel that vibrancy and connection. And many people have said, that the joy is in the journey, but I think ultimately the joy is in this present moment of the journey. That's where we have our touchstone with eternity, is in the here and now. And the ego is trying to draw us off into past thoughts, like what we did wrong, or what we could have done, what we should have done, the coulda, woulda, should haves. Or it's pushing it off into the future, like a future hope. Like, well, maybe in the future, maybe. I think I was 40 years old. I was talking to somebody, and they said, what's your last name? I said, Hoffmeister. They said, spell it. I spelled it. They said, oh, 2 F's. Meister is master, and HOFF, in I guess it's southern part of Germany, that means hope. And so when I was 40 years old, I was told I was the master of hope. I have to laugh. It's always like, okay, where did this name David come from? Well, that was King David in the Bible, the king of the Jews way back. And my sister's name is her first name and middle name are the names of the parents of Jesus. And then when I'm 40 years old, they say, oh, you're the master of hope. What? My gosh. But I find it all comes back to all that I give to myself. And for me, it was like learning to live a life of giving. I remember that part in the Bible where Jesus said, freely you have received, now freely give. And I thought, I think he's talking about freely you have received these spiritual gifts, miracles, now freely give them away. Give them generously. Give them wherever you go, whoever you meet. Bring gifts of joy, of happiness, of love. Bring gifts of peace. And that was at the beginning, that was very strange. I was like, oh, I don't know if I can do that. Jesus did it, but I don't know that me, you're asking me. And really it was like, it's your mind. Let me bring miracles through your mind and let them radiate out to the whole world. So I'm so touched that you're on here and that you've come after listening to all those speakers, and we get to meet you. You come full on the screen for everybody to see. And I think that there are ways that we can share and extend and contribute, and we always are finding new ways to do this. And it's very, very joyful as we do find these new ways. And it's almost like a discovery. Like, I think as I go through every day, I keep discovering new ways to share and to extend in ways that I never had considered before that. It's just these new opportunities just keep coming and coming and coming like a river. And I'm enjoying it. I'm savoring that. So that's my prayer for you, and all of us will just hold you in our hearts and our prayers. And thank you so much for coming on, because we can just feel your heart when you're talking. Our heart goes out to you to join with you and connect with you. And and say, welcome home, brother. We love you. We share the same heart. We share the same happy heart. So thank you, John. Thank you. Okay, well, we're back. I see we have Trent now there, and then after Trent is on, I'm going to invite my friend Kenneth Clifford to come and join me. But it's here. Hi, Trent. Nice to meet you.
Hi, David. Nice to finally meet. Just want to tell a little bit of backstory, as people generally do here. So, growing up, I had a couple of visions of Christ and Holy Spirit at a young age of 8 and then at 18. And I suppose I've always gone through life with a feeling of just a feeling that I'm meant to be doing something. And I've just had this constant guilt that I just haven't been fulfilling my purpose. Years of drugs and drinking and anyway, kids are growing up, raised kids through all that, and somehow that turned out beautifully, and just beautiful little darlings. And I'm at a really interesting spot in life now where I sold my house. I started dabbling in cryptocurrency. 1 o'clock one morning, I watched $100,000 just disappear from my account. Yeah, that was about a year ago, a bit over. A couple of years ago, I found the course. So yeah, it's sort of so and actually when the oh no, I'm all over the place, sorry. Yeah, when the course came into my life, not long after, I just found that I couldn't go on working anymore. I just couldn't get out of bed to go spend another day just doing meaningless tasks that just meant nothing. I felt like I spent my whole life doing it. And yeah, so I've stopped working and started studying the course. And now I've bought myself a bus actually, and now I'm thinking or spending the last of my money converting this bus, and I'm just going to go travel. And I've been such a control freak and guilt tripper, and I just want to forgive myself, and I want to forgive Jesus, because I feel like I was abandoned. I feel like he was there, and then and then for 30 years just hasn't been. But of course he has. But I've just been so controlling, trying to do it my way, that I just feel like I'm so shut off from guidance. But I just feel like I'm so shut down to God, and I just want to be wholehearted for God. Just want to give it all to him. And I don't know how to let go of control. I don't know how to let go of my grievances.
Yeah.
I feel like it's such a big thing. And it's just BS.
Yeah.
It just can't be true. I'm just sick of that story. I'm just tired of it.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, we feel what you're sharing, and we feel your heart, because I like to just always be reminded that everything that seems to happen, everything without exception, is happening for me, for my mind, and that the things that I've looked into the past or judged against, where I feel like I fell short, or I turned away, or I didn't answer the call, or I didn't step up, was all being used in the most wondrous way by the Spirit to heal my mind. You know, it was all happening for me, because the other option other than that is it was happening against me. And we know the feelings when we feel like the world is against us, or events conspired against us, or even with Jesus or anyone, our spiritual guides, if we feel we've been left or bereft of guidance, you know, like that footprints in the sand story, you know, like one pair of footprints, and where were you, Jesus, you know? And then Jesus is saying, I was carrying you. Those parts when you seem so low. So that is more like, wow, it was still working. It's all been working for us, that even when we felt we had gone off and we had blown it, or we had messed it up, the message seems to just keep coming through, like, no, you can't mess it up. Like when you said, you know, you worked these jobs, you've been working these jobs for many years, and you raised beautiful, loved, happy, healthy children. That is no small thing. How are we supposed to judge what we could have been doing when you were raising happy, healthy, loved children? You know, that is an extension of your heart. That's an extension of your heart. They're reflections of your beautiful heart. But the ego will try to pick up and pull all the other stuff out, the could'ves and should'ves and would'ves. But to me, I think that's such a miracle right there. And it just shows your heart. It really shows your heart, raising those beautiful, loved, happy, healthy children. And now, even with the cryptocurrency thing and the money kind of disappearing through that, I see it as the beginning of the converting the bus is the beginning of a great adventure. I could talk for hours and days and weeks and months about the adventures I've had out on the road, and all the vehicles that I had, and how they came in and how they disappeared, and how everything worked out. And I was so grateful for those lessons on the road, because it was like I was meeting new people every day, new friends, hundreds and hundreds of, I mean, Australia is a big country, and somebody just sent me something on Instagram the other day where it had all the countries of the world with a line drawn around them, and it looked like a giant cat playing with a ball, and the ball was Australia. Have a ball. You know, a play toy, the sense that you start to see, oh my gosh, I'm not going to keep looking back. I don't need to try to maintain this rear vision of what I could have done and what I should have done, and the guilt that comes from that looking back. But now you've got the bus, you're converting the bus, and what a road trip that can be, full of miracles. You know, you can just see you're giving your life over to Jesus and say, I know you're with me now. I'm going to go on this adventure, and I want you to help me lift any dark spots in my mind, any grievances or judgments that I've held, through the mechanism and the backdrop of travel, because I find that's one of the most helpful mechanisms that I've ever come across, because I don't feel I have any control. If you believe you've been controlling and you get out on the road, then you suddenly realize, oh my gosh, what was I thinking? Because you have to rely on trust, and there's so much trust involved. So we're all with you. Maybe you can, take a cell phone with you so we can hear from the road, hear some of those miracles from the road. And, you know, the past it's a wash. It's a wash. I would not dwell on it. I don't dwell on my past. I was just talking to a friend today, and I said, I'm actually starting to get into such joy and ecstasy, but I'm actually starting to forget my past. I try to think of a name or something, and it's not there, and I think, well, I must not need it because it's just disappearing. I kind of call it spiritual dementia. I kind of getting into spiritual dementia now, and actually enjoying it. Like my grandmother showed me, she showed the way for me. So thank you, Trent. We're all with you. We're all joined with you in heart. You're in our prayers, and go for the adventure. Let's get that bus transformed and get out there on the road. Thank you. Thank you, Trent. Love you. Which is a perfect lead in to Kenneth Clifford. Here's someone who hit the road and then returned from the road. And Kenneth, I was just reading on Facebook where you were saying that you saw, like a month before this retreat, the Pray, Listen, and Follow, and you decided to go much deeper into that, like just really fully give it over to Jesus, so you could feel the deep, intimate connections with all your brothers and sisters. And for Trent and Robert, who were there, Kenneth actually has spent probably the last year and a half or so, even maybe more, just traveling, going around Europe. And I saw somebody, one of Jeffrey Cosker's friends, prison friends, was saying, is that those hippies that were traveling around in a van? And no, you guys didn't even have a van. you didn't even have a transport. You just were transported. So yeah, please share with us. It seems like a perfect segue and lead in. Trent is setting you up.
Oh, thank you, David. Yeah, it's been incredible, really. I'm just so grateful, Trent, that you shared. Feels really touching. Yeah, because in a way, it's like travel is like leaving the past behind. And that's actually been one of my miracles that I feel really grateful for. It was like through traveling, I can relate to Trent in many ways. And I thought, some things feel like they're so hard to move from my mind. Is this even possible? And yet literally it's true. And I remember once, David, I was talking to you, and we were walking along, and I was sharing something with you, and you turned around to me just directly, you said, "Don't look back." And then we just carried on walking. That was like it. And it was like, really, could it be like that simple? And I feel like that the trip that I went around Europe was really like for that. It was like to show me that truly, like, the past is over. And I've always loved that about the Course in Miracles, like saying the past is over. I mean, this just sounds incredible, Jesus. That's what I love about the Course, because he just gives you so many gifts, doesn't he? It's like, wow, what is that like? I mean, the past is over. And then it was about going back to England. And then I went there, and then I saw, like, that was like incredible, because I saw that, like, it was all completely and utterly different than what I thought it was. Like everything had changed. Everything was like, everything was brand new in my mind, including my family. There were like things still to be healed, but it wasn't in the way that I had been perceiving it. Like, it was as if like I was the one that was catching up with the healing. Like, it was already done and I was clinging on to it. And I'm like, what the hell's going on? It's like everything was confirming that I am healed. And I was like, you got to be kidding me. You know, surely I'm still guilty. And funny enough, it was actually my brother-in-law that actually was really the straw that broke the camel's back. Because I said something, it was kind of similar along the lines of Trent, of feeling some sort of guilt. And my brother-in-law is just a typical man's man. And I said something, and then he just started crying. And he said, I can't bear to see you do this. We were in a restaurant. He said, I've got to go. And he just got up out of the restaurant. And I was like, my God. So I went out after him, and then we both just cried together. And he goes, you've just got to let it go. You've got to let it all go. And it was like as if the Holy Spirit was like coming through my brother-in-law. I'm thinking, what the hell's going on? And it was just like this whole wave. It was like the way that I had to hear it was like strong, direct, like, this is done. Like, I don't want to hear about it any longer, sort of thing. And it was like, bam, and it just hit me. And literally from that day on, it's like it's been like over, like this part. I'm not saying the whole thing's like, you know, I feel the whole thing, but a part of it just disappeared. And it was like when I came back to the community, it was they were doing a worship service. I wasn't able to get to it. And Lisa was talking about the past is over. And it was exactly my thoughts, yeah. I was like trying to think about this terrible time in my life. And I was like looking like this in my mind. And I was just thinking, what even is that? You know, it just didn't even make that. There was no need to like go into it, or there was just like nothing, just like, it's not even worth talking about. Like before, I could see that I was always reconfirming it and guilting myself. But now it's like, I can't even move myself even to like talk about it any longer, because it just doesn't feel relevant. And so I just feel so, you know, if that was the trip, I mean, I just feel so grateful for that. So I can tell you for sure, you can let go of the past. That's incredible. If that's not a gift, then I don't know what is. And so that was really the pray, listen and follow when David said, hey, you're going on this trip. It's kind of funny. So, okay, we're going on this trip. And it's like, well, it's not really going on a trip. Like the trip is really your mind, and everything's going to come to heal your mind. And funny enough, again, this relates to you, Trent, because when I went on the trip, I said, well, okay, it's not really about traveling around Europe, because I'm not really concerned about going to see anything. I mean, I'm whatever, but okay, this is the backdrop for the healing. So when I sat back and I prayed with Jesus, and he said to me, this is going to help you let go of control. And I said, oh my God, that's a relief. And he said, yeah, you still got too much control. I'm going to let go of control. And so I was going to Spain, and we were going to speak to Spanish speaking people. And I said to Jesus, do I need to speak Spanish? And he goes, no, you've got too much control. If you're speaking the language, that's just a nightmare. He said, so no, you don't need to. And so while I was there, it was like perfect, because I just had to be more intuitive. Like I couldn't understand what was happening. But then the amazing thing is also he said to me, I'm going to show you how expansive your mind was. So then I started to be able to understand Spanish without knowing. I would just have all images come to me about what they would share. And then I would just say, well, this is what I think you're talking about. And they said, yeah, exactly. And Anna goes, you're really picking this up, aren't you? I said, I understood nothing. I understood absolutely nothing. And then in that, I think it helped actually me get in touch with my emotions, actually, because I was just completely suppressed. And then being there, it was like I realized that I couldn't grip onto anything of the world. And I thought, there's just nothing here. It's not really inspiring to even go in this direction. And there's nothing really to grip onto, because it's all just completely crazy. So I just thought, well, the only thing I can grip onto is God. So that's the only thing I've got. And because it was me and Anna, I've got Anna to join with. She wants to join with God with me. And I just got to stay in this connection, and that's the end of it. And so that was that. And so from that, everything just started to happen miraculously from that. And of course, it was everything that just needed to heal my mind. And so whatever I needed to heal my mind would literally just come straight to my lap. And it seems like you have to do it, but truly it is by his grace. It's taken me a long time to learn this. But truly it is by his grace. And that was literally it, because I was put in a situation where I couldn't control anything, because I didn't even know where I was. And it was like I was laughing today, because we become so clueless, yeah. And everything, me and Anna were very deep in our prayer, and it's very simple prayer. Our prayers were we wanted to have fun, we wanted miracles, we wanted healing, and we wanted to serve the whole. And that was literally, that was the only things we could ever come up with. That's all we needed. And so everything then come from that place. And I just remember things like we just became so clueless in about like where we were or anything. And like we would like move country or something. And I'd be like to Anna, like, where are we? And she's like, we're in Belgium now. I said, oh, we left that other country, did we? You know, when did that happen, sort of thing? Like where you just have to stay so here. It's like, oh my God, there's just nothing else going on than this. And so that was just like incredible to me. And like I'd be at someone's house and the only thing was the healing, and we'd be going through this deep healing and they'd be like sharing miracles. Maybe they spoke to their family and there was this huge healing and we're like, oh my God, this is incredible. And they're thanking us. I'm thinking, how the hell is this happening? I'm really not in control of all of this. And then we're so deep into it. And then the person says, so you're leaving tomorrow then? And I said, where am I going? They said, no, your time's up, you're leaving tomorrow. And I'm like, oh, right, okay. But it wasn't like a concern about it any longer. So it's kind of interesting, like Jesus was like taking control of everything, you know, my mind, and then was just showing me like, hey, listen, I'm looking after everything. Like this isn't so fixed. You're not fixed. You're like everything, you know. And I can just miraculously, like in a way, I was like the fall guy, and then like Jesus was like, I was like the one that's turning up as a puppet, and then Jesus is sprinkling all the miracles around. And it's just, so that was just the incredible thing. So it's like just putting him first in the prayer, and then that's exactly what happened. And it's like there was never any, I don't think I ever thought about where I was going next, because it just naturally happened, you know. So that was that was the incredible thing. So I wish that for you, Trent.
Yeah, wasn't there, I keep hearing more and more parables that trickle through from those travels. And wasn't there a time when you were in Spain and you needed to go to a hospital, but it was just a Spanish-speaking hospital and you could not be admitted unless you could handle the language. So that was a requirement. And then there again was Ana Paola was with you traveling, and then she came with you. Because I know when I did all my travels, there were times where I ended up in lots of different places that I never had imagined I would end up in, but it was still that feeling of letting go of control. Like that's totally what I felt too. It was like being like a twig in the river, and it's like the Amazon River. It's a huge, powerful river, and you're the tiniest little twig, and you're bobbling and floating and going around the bends. But I think maybe you can share about that trip to the hospital and how that was, because those were some of the most powerful miracles for me of just letting go of control and trusting Jesus. It's your show, and I'm giving it all over to you, and I'm just going to go with the flow with this whole thing.
Yeah, that was incredible. So it's never what it seems, is it? That's the amazing thing. It was all about this healing, and so I wasn't feeling good, and that normally doesn't happen. And so I always tell Anna, if I say I'm not feeling very well, that means I am not feeling good. And so she was saying, hey, listen, I think we need to do something about this. And so we were like praying, but like we were like moving on, we were like moving on and everything. So everything was getting pretty tight. And then she said, well, you know, if we move on, you know, we don't know where we're going to be able to go to the hospitals and different things. So it's felt, okay, yeah, let's go to the hospital. So the next morning we got up early and we went to the hospital. We found out everything, and that all went smoothly. And then I was like really tense, right? But I felt like I was completely relaxed. And so Jesus was like working with me now. And like Anna goes, you're looking a bit stressed over there. I goes, I'm perfectly fine. She goes, you don't look fine to me. And I said, because obviously I'm completely suppressed. I goes, I'm walking down. I said, I'm completely relaxed. She goes, well, your shoulders are right up here. You're looking pretty tense. I said, really? She said, yeah, I think you need to cry. And I said, really? And I said, okay, I trust you. So I said to her, okay, Jesus, I trust Anna more than I trust myself here. I'm just going to open up to the experience. And so we get to the hospital. They're all really loving. Okay, come into the waiting room. So we wait there, and within minutes, I'm going to see the doctor. So the doctor says, okay, we've got to do some blood tests, and we're going to do urine and everything. Are you all good with that? Anna's talking to him. They're telling me all in Spanish. I said, yeah, I'm good. I just don't like to look at these things, but you can do whatever you want. And so the lady came along. She took 3 bloods in my arm. And that all felt fine. And then she said, oh, we're just going to take the tests off now and we'll find out what's happening. So, okay, great. And then with that, it was as if I allowed this fear to come up. Like I just decided, like, I'm just going to be exactly as I am. I don't have to try and be anything. And that was like my practice. And all of a sudden I'm sitting there and I'm like, oh my God, I felt really scared and I felt really frightened. But now I was getting interested, but I thought, okay, this is interesting. So I sat there and I just allowed like the fear just to come up. I'm like, my God, I'm really, really frightened. And I didn't even concern myself whether like, you've only had 3 blood tests done, you know, what are you talking about? None of that. I just thought, oh my God, I'm really scared. And I just felt like I had an image of it as if I was an 8-year-old little boy who was completely scared. And then I just started crying in the middle of the hospital. Right. But it was really, really fascinating because I didn't feel shame for the first time. And it was like I was observing myself crying in the hospital. And I was just thinking, oh, my God, I'm crying in the middle of the hospital and I'm not feeling shame. And I was really proper crying. And I thought, wow, this is really, really interesting. So we did that. And then they came and they said, OK, we need urine samples now. I said, OK. So I go and do the urine samples, but then when I go in there and I'm crying in the toilet, now I really, really start crying. And then they put me in the corridor and I'm just crying in the corridor, completely breaking down in the corridor. But it was like that let go, because it was like, what could I do? I was put in these positions whereby just let it all go. It's okay. Like you're being taken care of. And I could just feel the healing in my heart was like happening. Like I had to be put in these sort of like funny circumstances for me to like burst open or something. But that was the kind of beauty of it, because again, I was observing myself thinking, I'm crying in the middle of the hospital. This would normally be obviously a complete nightmare. But it was like, it actually felt beautiful in my heart. I just thought, well, at least I'm being real. You know, at least this is exactly as I'm feeling. And so, yeah, that's what I felt actually. Jesus was putting me into all of these circumstances that were just to heal me. There was another one. We met these, we met this girl out from nowhere who owned this yoga retreat center. And she said, oh my God, I love everything you're doing. Come with me. I'm going to pay for everything. I've got a yoga retreat center. You don't have to worry about a thing. And we had nowhere to stay at that point. And she's like, I've got you. We're like, okay, great, let's go. So we go with her. It turns out she lived in an ashram for 9 years and then decided that, her and her guru decided it was time for her to leave. And then she just shared all of her miracles of what had happened through setting up this yoga retreat center and the money and everything. And we were sharing our stories. And she said, oh, I'm so grateful to hear someone else who's been in a community setting and to know what it takes to go through. And it was like the same lessons were happening there as what was happening for us. It's like, it's just the same thing. So she said, oh, I'm so grateful that I've got to share this. And so she was sharing. And so the next day she said, oh, my friends are coming. You're going to love them. They're really incredible. They're traveling around in their van. So they turn up. And that night I slept in a bed, and the bed was a really, really soft bed. And that's normally not good for me. And I woke up and, oh my God, my back was aching, really like hurting me. And so in the evening, we all came down to have dinner. And the yoga teacher was there, and she said, and I was sort of like sat down like this, and she said, what's going on with you? And I said, oh, my back's hurting me. But it was incredible. And she was like, what's going on in your mind? Straight away. She was like, and I was like, good point. So I sat back like that, and I was sitting there in prayer, and nothing was really coming through. And then she turned around and then she said, what do you need? This is what she said to me. And then I sat there and I thought, God, I really need a hug. But before I'd be too nervous or too what's the word, prideful or whatever. I'd be like, I'm fine, don't worry about it. And I knew I wanted to be, I thought, God, I just want to be hugged. So, and they were all girls, and I was like, I just want to be hugged by everyone. And they all like literally leaped out of their chairs. They're like, oh my God, yes. So I sat in the corner, and then they all huddled around me, and they're all like holding me. And then finally, one of them just put their hand on my knee, and then I just literally broke. And I just started crying and crying and crying. I have no idea what it was, but then it was as if this energy just like lifted off me. It was so funny. Then the dog started barking, and then they were like, "Whoa, what just happened?" And I was like, "I have no idea." Yeah. And I was like, "Wow, that was an incredible release." And I was like, "Thank you, thank you." And then they were saying, and then it was like, "God, you're so real." And I was like, really? I feel so false at the moment. They go, no, we just feel your heart. I'm so grateful you did that. I said, really? And it was like everywhere I went, I felt like I was completely breaking down. It's kind of hilarious now, but it was like, it was just what needed to happen. And then it was just like incredible from that. So it was like these little scenarios just kept coming. And it was like, and I was saying to Jesus, like, for example, like the song, "You've Never Been Loved Like You Have Right Now." And I was like, Jesus, I don't feel loved. I'd say to him, and he goes, I'm sending all these people to you. He goes, I'm sending them all to love you. And I was like, oh, yeah. And it was like whatever request, he just kept showering me and saying, it's okay, it's okay. And so in a way, that was what it was all about.
Yeah, these are great examples, because that I was reading, Aline had referenced this morning the chapter 9, section 2, and we talked a little bit of those first 3 paragraphs, that healing is not symptom removal, and it's the real fear underneath in the mind is of letting go of the self-concept. So the examples you're giving, whether it's the hospital, the yoga center, I know recently, I know you also had, when you were watching a Chosen episode with the zealot that was there, that joined Jesus, and the assassins came, to take him out. They literally brought their swords and daggers, to kill their former zealot who had joined Jesus, and they thought they had abandoned the cause of the zealots and to follow a rabbi. And then right at the scene when they were ready to come and kill him, they were surrounding him, they were going to ready to kill him. I remember you had just had a prayer in your heart for him, was just to let go and drop, and it was like, for yourself, you were letting go of the self-concept in your mind, of the tough guy, of the guy that's in charge, of the guy that's in control. And these experiences of all of these ladies hugging you at the yoga center and the hospital, allowing you to cry and cry and cry, probably never in all the years, decades, gave yourself that much permission. But in all the places, the Spanish hospital, you don't even speak the language, you felt, okay, nothing, I don't have to hold on here. So the tough guy, the in control, that's where the healing was happening. You were literally having a shift in self-concept away from the past into something brand new, with Jesus leading the way and literally kind of lifting you and lifting energy out of your body. And it just shows how it's entirely involuntary, and that we really don't know what the healing is. If we believe it's the symptom that has to go, then we're not focusing. And then you have a yoga teacher saying, what's going on in your mind? That's pretty strong when you have a yoga teacher tell it to you. Somebody whose whole life and profession is part of postures and positions, and what's going on in your mind, that Jesus is behind that. So I just think those are great examples. People need good, clear examples to kind of demonstrate, oh, what is this healing going on? And I think it's all about letting go.
Yeah. It's like, yeah, I didn't know how to let go, and that's the thing. And I don't know what I needed to let go of, and still, and that becomes the incredible thing. Like the other day, for example, it was like I saw like my neediness to be needy. I was like projecting it out on others. And then it's like, hold on a minute, this is me.
In one moment, oh my God,
Yeah.
this is me.
And then it was like, and then I saw that I wanted to be rescued, yeah. And it was really funny because I just joined with Jason around something else, and he was like, yeah, you really need to share this. This is incredible. And I thought it was all going to be about this miracle. And I thought, yeah, he's so right. And he felt it. And then when I shared it, it felt good. But then afterwards, it was like, that's what opened up to like this deeper healing that was going on underneath all this. I still have no idea what it was. And then I could take it back and say, I want to be rescued. And then, my God, when I really owned that, the ego was not happy with that one. It's like, oh my God. And this shame just like hit me like a ton of bricks. And I sat there for a few hours, but now I'm really enjoying it because it felt sort of painful, but it was like, my God, look at this. And it was like, oh, just trying to like literally like drag me down. But I was just like looking at it, and it was feeling, oh, it was awful inside of me. But at the same time, I just thought, wow, this is incredible. This has been ruling my life. I mean, how would I have even got here? What even is this, you know? And then you just feel like I didn't feel the whole release, but I felt something sort of like, and then it like moved through, and I just thought, there you go. There's another thing. And so it becomes like more and more fascinating every day. I think, oh my God, what's going to happen today? You know, I kind of pray for like the shame to come up or whatever.
Yeah.
It feels more real. It feels more alive. And I think that's what Jesus showed me on the whole of this trip and everything, which I loved. And it's almost like being in the Matrix. And he was like, you are a prisoner of your own mind. And I always love those sort of sayings in the course. And I'm just like, wow, this is amazing. And then that's what I felt like. It's like I'm feeling more and more the prison in my own mind. When I go in, it's like I can feel it, but it feels so alive to actually see it. And, you know, Jesus says in the course, you have to see the prison to be able to free yourself from the prison. Krishnamurti said the same thing. And it was like, now I'm sitting there just thinking, wow, this is amazing. This is the prison. I'm doing it to myself. It's becoming more and more real. Like, wow, this is me. And then when you can feel it, like you start to feel the release, and then you start to feel more. It's like incredible. It's like completely the opposite. You feel like, wow, if I feel this prison, I'm going to feel imprisoned for the rest of my life. But the more and more I feel it, the more and more alive I feel. And it's like what Jesus says, you know, where the guilt is, the light is also. So keep looking at your guilt, and slowly the light will be there. So that's the joy of facing these feelings. But I didn't even know they were there.
Yeah. Oh, well, thank you, Kenneth. This is kind of capping off our session, and we'll move here into our final song. It's interesting because as you're going through the healing, you can become aware of judgments or opinions or pride or self-righteousness or whatever it is. And you may have the thought, like Kenneth has been sharing, I don't know how I'm going to let go of control. I have tried for 30, 40 years and it has not worked. And then we have to remember the how. We aren't responsible for the how. The how is within us. The how loves us. The Holy Spirit is the how. All we have to do is get out of the way to let the how do the how for us. And that's the miracle of it. And you see how different that is from us personally thinking we have to do something to heal ourselves. I like when Jesus says, you cannot wake yourself, but you can allow yourself to be awakened. That is one of the most wonderful lines, I think, in the Course, because it's just saying, just surrender and trust. So thank you, Kenneth. And we will go now, I think, to our final closing song of the night. And I see Eric and Emily are there and at Casa Quantico. So thank you so much, Ken, and we're going to go for our closing song for this session tonight.
Here's my heart, Lord. Here's my heart, Lord. Here's my heart, Lord. Speak what is true. Here's my heart, Lord. Here's my heart, Lord. Here's my heart, Lord. Speak what is true. I am found, I am yours, I am loved, I'm made pure, I have life, I can breathe, I am healed, I am free. Here's my heart, Lord.
Yeah.
Here's my heart, Lord. Here's my heart, Lord. Speak what is true. I am found, I am yours,
Yeah. Thank you. Thank you, everyone. Have a good rest. And if you're in Australia and Perth, good day, mates. Have a good day. Have a beautiful day wherever you are. And I send you my love. Thank you.